Good morning. Good morning, choir. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. It is good to be with you this morning, with you in person and online, sharing another Sunday worship together. A worship that we hope opens your minds, your loving hearts, your helping hands, and inspires you to take great care of these Matenakak lands, our earth, and work for peace and friendship in this world that we share together. My name is Dana Moore. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as your student minister alongside my supervisors, the Reverend David Carl Olson, the Reverend Israel Buffardi, and under the exceptional leadership of our lead minister, the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore. Our worship associate today is Juliet Mitchell. Juliet is a member of the Intern Ministry Committee, a team of UUCSR members who made the daring commitment of companioning me during my time here. Juliet represents the fearsome leadership developed in this community, in our religious education programs, and the potential for the future of our faith. Juliet gives me hope, encouragement, and guidance in my role here as a student minister. As our UUA president, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt urged a group of BIPOC religious professionals last year, get yourself a mentor who is younger than you. No, not to help you set up your new smartphone, but to inspire you, to challenge you, to question, push, and hold you accountable to the promise of the future and our covenants with one another right in this very moment. History has its eyes on you, friends, and these, our future leaders, are watching. I invited Juliet to join the Intern Ministry Committee to ensure that I never lose sight of who I hope to serve in my ministry one day, so that I can be accountable to caring for, giving voice to, representing, and preparing for our most vulnerable beloveds, our most impacted communities, and our leaders of the future. Thank you, Juliet. Speaking of the future, as the cold, flu, and COVID season persists, we invite you to mask, to maintain respectful distance, to wash and sanitize your hands as you feel necessary to ensure your well-being and that of our beloved community. This is especially important as we prepare for our annual congregational retreat in the spring. Registration is open online, and we invite all UUCSR families to attend. We want to see you there as healthy as can be and having fun. I also would like to bring your attention to another event in the very near future. By invitation from our phenomenal social justice coordinator, Claire DeRoche, and the Islamic Center of Long Island, to their 21st annual Black History Month celebration on Sunday, March 3rd. Following our services today, we invite you to join us for lunch here in the social hall. Our Sunday cafe is held each week after services. A monetary donation is appreciated. However, if you are a guest, if this is your first time here, we invite you to dine as our guest. Please see a lovely member of our membership team at the welcome desk, and they will guide you to a lovely lunch. And finally, After your delicious meal, please come back and join us here in the worship hall for jazz in the afternoon with Danny Lipsitz and the Brass Tacks beginning at 1 p.m. Tickets are just $10 for individuals, $20 for families, and all are welcome. Now, beloveds, let us prepare our hearts and minds to worship together as we light our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism, with these words by Katie Gelfand.
The end is the beginning. We call forth the life of our faith by igniting our chalice. This spark of new beginnings invites us into a sacred place to reflect where we have been and where we are going. Even knowing that this particular flame will intentionally end with our ritual extinguishing, we fear not its end. For we know with our brave hearts that from every ending of our lives, we are sent forth to make a new beginning.
It is often said that to know where you are going, you must know where you have been. We are going on a journey together, and I want to see you there with me at the end of this journey. There lies before us both a road in front of us and behind us, holding the stories of our lives. Untold stories, not yet written, stories full of pain and triumph, stories of hope and anticipation. Who will tell our stories of the road behind? With truth and resilience, accountability and courage, who will sing our songs of justice? Today, I want to take you on a journey to a land far, far away, one in our hearts, in our histories, in our minds, to the world as it is, and to that place our ancestors spoke of, dreamed of, that someday, the world that they sang songs about to guide us, to help us remember the way, to help us build strength and maintain our faith. For as Deborah Kaufner says, when nothing is certain, everything is possible. So, who is willing to come with me on this journey? Awesome, I hope you're not afraid. But if you are coming, please rise as you are ready to show that you are willing to take a step into the unknown. And let us together sing hymn number 1018, Come and Go With Me.
Please join me in reciting our words of affirmation and remain standing for our song of affirmation to follow. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need. This do we affirm and covenant with each other. You may be seated. Our reading this morning is titled, "In the Meantime," from At the Orphan's Door by Tom Hirons. Meanwhile, flowers are still blooming. The moon rises and the sun. Babies smile, and somewhere against all odds, two people are falling in love. Strangers share cigarettes and jokes. Light plays on the surface of water. Grace occurs on unlikely streets, and we hold each other fast against entropy, the fires, and the flood. Life leans towards living, and while death claims all things at the end, there were such precious times in between in which everything was radiant and we loved again in this world.
Shall
Each Sunday, we take a special collection which extends our vision of beloved community by supporting work in the world which addresses human needs. Our October offerings provided support to Erase Racism, an organization dedicated to uplifting the next generation of changemakers by working to expose and address the devastating impact of historic and ongoing structural racism on Long Island, in New York, and nationally. Erase Racism's student engagement takes place right here on Long Island through their student leadership internships that focus on giving youth the tools they need to organize and advocate for racial equality. And their student task force, a group of high school students passionate about racial justice and making positive change in their schools and communities. We invite you to give as generously as you are able.
With justice on our minds, I invite you into this meditation. Great Spirit of love and life, be with us in this moment as we relieve our hearts of grief. Be with us as we open our minds to truth. Ever-present Spirit of love, force of life, draw near. Draw near and closer still, as close as a lover's embrace, as close as long-lost friends reunited, as close as we have been to justice and then lost sight. Love, help us to stay on her heels, on the heels of justice. Help us to remember that justice is love in motion, that justice, like our bodies, must keep moving to keep moving. Let justice move through our world like the winds of storms. Let justice spread like the wildfires that rage across our globe. Let justice billow like clouds of pollution that destroy our earth. Let justice rise like the insidious acts of hatred and racism that we fight daily. Let justice boom like bombs of liberation for the oppressed. Let justice flow like the tears of our sorrows and regrets. Love, please hear us and heal us, and let justice guide our actions and transform our beliefs. Let justice bring comfort to our hearts and vision to our minds. Let justice inspire and bring into being a more just and loving world. Let justice be a reminder of the work we do together in faith. Let justice be our cry. Let justice be our prayer until there is no longer a need for justice to be our prayer. Amen.
Once upon another time, somebody's hands that looked like mine turned the key and took a drive, was free. Highway curved, the sun sank low, Buckley on the radio. The cigarette was burning slow, so breathe. Just yellow lines and tire marks and sun-kissed skin and handlebars, and where I stood was where I was to be. No enemies to call my own, no porch light on to pull me home, and where I was is beautiful because I was free. Once upon another time, before I knew which life was mine, before I left the child behind me, I saw myself in summer nights, and stars lit up like candlelight. I make my wish, but mostly I believe in yellow lines and tire marks, sun-kissed skin and handlebars, and where I stood was where I was to be. Once upon another time, decided nothing good in dying, so I'd keep on driving because I was free.
Wow. How is that for a story? I hope it took you back. I hope it made you think of times in your life. I want to talk about a biblical ancestor of mine, one you may claim or not, a man named Moses. Many know the story of Moses, born as an Israelite during a time where the reign of Pharaoh in Egypt was devastating. Pharaoh had ordered infanticide, ordered all Israelite babies to death. Moses was saved in his journey down a river. Some might call this life-saving water of spirit. He was saved and taken in to a home and existence he never would have dreamed of. Grew up as a prince. Later, he finds that he is actually of the enslaved people, the people in which his family enslaved. Moved by this, Moses wants to do something. Unfortunately, he ends up killing someone and runs away in shame. Many years after, in his work as a shepherd, he comes upon a burning bush. I like to think of that burning bush, the symbol in the Bible for us today, maybe being a burning chalice. But Moses is drawn to this burning bush and hears the voice of the divine call him to remove his shoes and to listen closely. God, as some call this great divine spirit, said to Moses, "You will lead my people out of bondage." Naturally, he questioned being called as a leader. He didn't think himself fit as a speaker. He knew of his past. But there were a few things about Moses that particularly speaks to me. He was a leader. And like many of us called into leadership, didn't know what he had to give, didn't know if he would or could be effective, yet he did it anyway. He took those steps forward with faith. He grappled and argued with God often, and still came to be the person to lead his people out of bondage, lead his people to another body of water, life-saving water, touched by spirit, spread apart for their safe passage. Moses continues to lead these people who were not easy to lead. They fought him quite often. They were naughty. And he tried his hardest. And he did succeed. You'll hear a reading where Moses comes to Mount Nebo at his death, after doing the work of God, after trying his hardest. And this is where our story begins.
This translation is from Scriptures of the Holy Bible, New International Version. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 48 through 52. He said to them, "Take to heart all the words I have solemnly declared to you this day, so that you may command your children to obey carefully all the words of this law. They are not just idle words for you. They are your life. But them you will have lived long in the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess." On the same day, the Lord told Moses, "Go up into Abarim range to Mount Nebo in Moab, across from Jericho, and view Canaan, the land I am giving to the Israelites as their own possession. There on that mountain you have climbed, you will die and be gathered to your people, just as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. This is because both of you broke faith with me in the presence of the Israelites at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the desert of Zin, and because you did not uphold my holiness among the Israelites. Therefore, you will see the land only from a distance. You will not enter the land I am giving to the people of Israel.
Once upon a time, there was no justice to be found for my ancestors, for those who survived the transatlantic journey, for the first enslaved Africans landing on these western shores. It would take centuries for them to have freedom. Once upon a time, God's people cried out for freedom. They asked to be led. They asked to be liberated. Once upon a time, the freedom of enslaved people led to more rights and awareness, human dignity, and the civil rights movement. Still, our ancestors sought life-saving waters to guide them to liberation, crossing bridges in our not-so-far history to make it so. Once upon a time, elephants migrated around the earth in search of life-saving waters. These large, beautiful, majestic creatures created pathways with the weight of their body and the pounding of their feet. They moved trees and branches that caused seeds to fall, to grow deep in the ground, creating new sources of food for other wildlife, for those who would follow in their path, always seeking life-saving waters, always seeking their own survival. Our histories are littered with stories of life-saving moments, of living waters, of leaders who were unsure about the next step to take. We can look back in our histories and learn that we are all imperfect, that we are all human, and that we are all responsible for one another in some way. I ask you to think back in your own history, when you may have been called to lead in some way, or simply to be courageous, bold of heart, knowing that taking the next step that may have been so hard, knowing that today we are okay. Had you known everything would work out, is there anything you would do differently? Would you have acted sooner? I often wonder if Moses hadn't argued with God so much, would he have acted sooner? I wonder if our ancestors, settlers in this nation, had pushed just a little harder, if Juneteenth wouldn't be what it is today. If all people were freed so much sooner. But today, we live in a world where 3 centuries of enslavement, more than 20 generations of people are still reeling from their generational trauma. Resmaa Menakem says in his book, My Grandmother's Hands, that our nation's settlers came here with their own histories of trauma, their own histories of seeing crisis, inhumane treatment. And they brought this with them to these lands. Our ancestors were used to seeing hatred carried out from white bodies to white bodies and came here to this land where that trauma transferred from white bodies to red bodies to black bodies and so on. We are no stranger to the pain of our pasts. But in seeing this, we know we cannot go on in such a way. I hope that in hearing these stories and remembering yours, that you do feel called to stand, to step, to take a step forward and lead this community and your people toward justice, liberation. Moses was a leader. And even in his great works of leading his people out of bondage and into the promised land, God said, I will show you the land that I have promised my people, but you will not enter. We are all on a journey towards spiritual wholeness. We are all on a journey to build up a world that we may never see. To build up a world for our future generations. And so again, I ask you, knowing that we are okay, knowing that we have each other, that we have strength, that we have understanding, history, and power, what would you do differently? What step would you boldly take into the unknown, into the uncertain, to ensure justice and liberation for our future generations? Our ancestors used the earth and the cosmos to guide them to liberation. Our ancestors led with a faith that they could not explain or define, but they knew they needed to move. People of the Bible have always moved toward freedom and liberation. Animals and the earth cry out silently for its own liberation of generations. And we must continue to strive for that kind of freedom for our youth. Because of the journey, they learned what was needed. They relied on the care of each other to bring one another to freedom and continued to share. We remember this through scripture. We remember this through song. We remember this through trails through the earth. There's always another generation to pick up the mantle. Joshua picked up that mantle of Moses after his death. For generations after slavery, our civil rights leaders picked up the mantle toward justice. And now it is our time, our call to lead our future generations. What hope do these stories of the past, riddled with pain, glean for us in our future? What promises can we make to our youth, and how will we continue to hold them? How will we open the doors of justice?
This piece is called Waiting for Justice. It captures our shared stories, moments of time moving at the speed of justice.
Once upon a time, my ancestors thrived in these lands, honoring earth and spirit and each other. They saved and sheltered my people who arrived in shackles on ships based on color.
Once upon a time, my ancestors arrived on these lands full of promise. They brought with them dark peoples snatched from their own worlds, and of their futures, they were thoughtless.
Once upon a time, I was taught in school of abolitionists who fought for my rights. I've come further than my kindred. I live their dreams reborn. Still I weep their tears that blur my sight.
Once upon a time, I was taught in school that white people had joined in the fight to correct the harm brought to those enslaved, then refused to acknowledge their own plight.
Once upon a time, I saw my sisters executed in their own homes, my brothers slain in the streets. I gathered my family close. We sheltered in place, fearing the world still unsafe, watching scenes riddled in disgrace.
Once upon a time, I saw the inhumane treatment of Black and brown people, slain in their homes and in the streets for sport. I gathered friends and family close, took to the streets in protest to oppose the silenced injustice that the world knows.
Once upon a time, I longed for justice, for the earth and all of its living beings. I found hope in these walls, with you, my people, in the voices of our youth. I will not stand still and wait for justice.
I longed for justice, for trans, queer, and indigenous people like Next Benedict who should just feel safe going to school. I found hope in these walls. With you, my people, and the voices of our leaders, I will not stand still and wait for justice.
Once upon a time, I cried out to the Lord,
to the world,
for justice. God, I'm still waiting.
Force of the universe, I'm still creating.
For justice.
Justice.
Beloveds, it is our privilege to build up a world full of universal values that unite, that provide equitably, and don't leave our generations still longing, still waiting for justice. We can only achieve this by working together. And so again, I ask you, will you join us on this journey toward spiritual wholeness, and like a herd of elephants, create new paths toward justice? Will you plant seeds of love to nourish our future generations? Will you sing the songs of hope and freedom to help us remember from where we have come and where we are going. Even if we are imperfect, even if we are uncertain, will you help us to build a new way? If so, let us affirm this commitment. Let us affirm a new covenant to justice in song. Please rise with me in body or spirit as we sing hymn number 1017, Building a New Way. Beloveds, it is our privilege to build up a world of universalist values, our privilege to create the world to come for our youth. We extinguish this flame today, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. As our chalice is now extinguished, it lives on in the minds, hearts, and souls of each one of you. May that fire burn brightly. May it forever be so.